8:37, 83 degrees outside of our WXBR studios here in Brockton. I'm Mike Paiva alongside Peter Czymbor, and boy, do we have a special guest in studio right now, Pete.
Yeah, Mike, we mentioned prior to the local news update that we'd have a special guest in studio. We should mention that this Tuesday at Joe Angelo's Cafe in downtown Brockton, a festivity celebrating 50 years of boxing for Roger Pitt-Perrin. Tickets are $20, and more information can be found by calling Hank Tartaglia at 508-667-4438 or Joe Angelo at 508-588-8331. And joining us now in studio is the master of ceremonies for that event, former Brockton Rox skipper Ed Nottle. Ed, good morning and welcome to the Metro South Morning Show here at 250 Belmont Street.
I appreciate it very much. And again, every time I come in here since they redid this, what a great situation, great atmosphere. A lot different than it was in the old Enterprise building, and I absolutely know. So I salute whoever put all this together. They did a great job.
They're standing behind you, as a matter of fact. If you actually want to physically salute them, you can do that.
I will do that in reverse. But I always thought, I remember I used to do Hank's show on Friday nights with Hank and all those guys, and Pitt included, but with all those guys. And I always thought that there were things in that room that medical science hasn't even discovered yet. It was like a rainforest, for God. And but they've done a great job here, and obviously it's going to be a good situation.
Once again, we're chatting with Ed Nottle here on AM 1460, the new WXBR, former Brockton Rox manager who is in town to MC this event for Roger Pitt-Perrin Tuesday night at Joe Angelo's Cafe. Ed, it's been a number of years since you have been manager for the Brockton Rox. Still, you find yourself in the city, it seems, more often than not. What are you doing these days, and what keeps bringing you back to the city of Brockton?
Well, the big history is in come back city of Brockton is Joe Angelo calls and says, come on, we've got this or we've got that. So thank you, Joe. My wife has figured out that I've lived at Joe Angelo's house in the last 7 years more than I've lived at my house. So to Joe and Sheila Angelo, God bless you. They kind of adopted me, and it's always gone well. But I love the city, and there's always a fundraiser going on or a situation going on. I'm a big Billy Carpenter fan. So whenever I can, now I'm back here, I try to throw in a few accolades in Billy's way. Running for mayor, again, good man. I think it's time for a change. I think he's a good man to do it. I didn't come on the show, I know, to be politically one way or the other, but I am definitely one way.
So you are a man who is not a resident of Brockton. You can't vote in Brockton, yet you're endorsing a candidate in Brockton. That endorsement probably means something, considering your history here. Well,
I hope it does. I don't think I've left too many enemies in Brockton. I was always lucky enough to I really care about this city. I was at Pawtucket for 5 years before I came here. I know the New England area pretty well, and things went just marvelous. Those first 3 or 4 years were as much fun as I've ever had in baseball, and I've been somebody that's had a lot of fun in baseball. I just I care about things that happen, and just like with Billy, I just think he's a good man. And of course, you can't vote. Don't mean that you don't keep up on the city. And Patty and I are on the internet every day with the Brockton with the Enterprise, and just care about what happens. And in this particular instance, there's not doubt in my mind that it does take a carpenter to build a city, and I think we got the right one in Billy.
Once again, we're chatting with Ed Nottle here on AM 1460, the new WXBR, former Brockton Rox manager. Now, when were you manager for the Brockton Rox? Was it the first 4 or 5 seasons?
2002 to 2007, and then came back and coached a couple times, a couple years for him.
Because there was a period where you were not a member of the Brockton Rox, where Chris Miyake, one of your former assistants, took over field manager duties for the Brockton Rox. Then you came back, correct me if I'm wrong, as a hitting coach?
I came back as a pitching coach and kind of just keep my eye on different things. Probably it would be a bench coach. Back then, I think I was listed as a bench coach, and I was doing a talk show, actually, and a lady said, well, what is a bench coach? I said, well, when people mill around, when we're at bat, they get the benches out of line, and my job was to straighten them up every half inning, and she really believed me when I said that, so I don't say that anymore on the radio.
Now, help me out because I don't exactly remember the specifics, but when the Brockton Rox ceased to exist as a professional team, now they're a wooden bat collegiate team operating in the Futures Collegiate Baseball League, a team consisting of college players. When they ceased to exist as a professional team, were you there towards the end, or were you gone a little bit before then?
I was there, but I was there as a helper, as a guy that they brought in to just to be there. Things weren't going real well. I was halfway popular, I think, and the Rox have always been very good to me. Their situation now, I don't think people realize, one, it's a good brand of ball. I'm just happy to see baseball still being played in that gorgeous stadium. I always loved that stadium. And there's some other things that people don't realize. One, it's a good league. Two, the best rule about that whole league is that you have to have 75% of your players come from New England colleges. Well, that's a great opportunity for these young kids. Everybody that plays there in the Futures League, everybody that plays there wants to play pro baseball. There's no doubt about it. And to have that opportunity in a great ballpark, not everybody can fit into the Cape Cod League. The Cape Cod League, you get more of an international almost, not international, but national. You got kids from Arizona State, you got kids from Pepperdine, you got kids from all over, top college players in the nation. Well, there's only so many slots. Now you got another opportunity here, and not only have an opportunity, but 3/4 of the opportunities go to New England college kids. So I think it's a great thing. I've been up there 3 or 4 times since I've been back, and it's a great place to go watch a ball game. It's a great place to see your friends, and it's a great place to be. You can't get in trouble at a ballpark, I've always said. Also, I wanted to mention, if I could, Peter, tonight you're doing the station is doing their show live on 5 to 7 on the Hank Italia show.
Yes, they are. Joe Angelo's Cafe.
At Joe Angelo's Cafe back in Mulligan's, a beautiful, I think, next to the event center, the most beautiful room in the city of Brockton, at Mulligan's. Take advantage. One, come and see it if you haven't been down there. It's a beautiful, beautiful back room, and we'll all be there starting at 5, and Pitt will be there. So if you have any questions for Pitt or for Hank or anybody on the show, we'll be there live and looking forward to it. And then again, I would really hope a lot of you show up. Here, 50 years, I kind of relate to it. I got 52 years in minor league baseball, 1 year in the big leagues. Believe me, it's a haul. I happen to love every day of baseball and don't begrudge anything, but that's a long time to put into anything. And he's done it very well, and he deserves a lot of you folks out there that know him for a long time here in Brockton. Take your time not only to stop by tonight and see him at Joe's from 5 to 7, but stop by on Tuesday night, and we're going to have a big time.
We'll mention once again, it's celebrating 50 years of boxing. Roger Pitt Perrin this Tuesday night at Joe Angelo's Cafe. Tickets $20. More information, call Hank Tartaglia at 508-667-4438 or call Joe Angelo at 508-588-8331. Ed, when the Brockton Rox did cease to exist as a professional team and ultimately became the amateur team that we see nowadays, I believe after a brief period of inactivity, where did you think the organization was going on, and where did you think your career as a career baseball guy, if you will, was going?
Well, I was hoping at the time that something would come up and it would stay in the Can-Am League, to be perfectly honest. Baseball was everything to me. I went right from 17 years old. I went in the service the day I turned 17, and really I got scouted and signed out of being in the service. I didn't play high school ball. I didn't play college ball. I didn't play Legion ball. And all of a sudden there was one thing. I didn't have a trade, and all of a sudden there was one thing I could do. A few years later, I started doing a lot of singing and doing a lot of fundraising, and that was the only other thing. I always thought God sort of saw me and just said, well, I don't think I'll let you in the big leagues. And then as he's turning away, I think he just looks and says, I'll let you carry a tune and see if you can do anything with that. Well, we've been involved with a lot of children and a lot of programs because of that. And I just wanted to stay in the game, to be perfectly honest. I'll be 74. Last year I ran into a bunch of medical problems that have all been solved. But it's just hard at 74. People are very catchy about your coming back. And I've had a few calls about, do you want to go here, do you want to go there? But it's not really something that I was excited about. I was hoping that we could stay in the Can-Am here, and I'd like to get back involved here. But I think somewhere down the road, I think you're going to see pro ball back in that ballpark. It's not certainly my call, and I don't have any inside info on that.
We had Jack Units on the program earlier in the week who mentioned the possibility.
I would love to see that. I really would. And Jack, I've been trying to get a hold of Jack. I know he was gone for a few days. I left a message for him. He's a good friend, and I feel honored to be on that little Hall of Fame wall outside the front of the stadium with him, and he's somebody that when things weren't going really good, I think he's somebody that took a little bit of the blame for things that certainly wasn't his fault. I've always been a Jack Units man, and you can say what you want. I love this city, and when that park was built, I think this city realized what a little gem that was, and anybody has any second thoughts about whether that was right or wrong, to me, is a damn fool. I think it's a gorgeous little gemstone right in the middle of our town, and you put that with the football field and with Marciano statue and everything else. Those are things to be proud of, I think. I know I certainly am.
Once again, we're chatting with Ed Nottle here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. Ed, you mentioned that in 52 years of baseball, you had one cup of coffee for 1 year in the major leagues. What did you do in the major leagues, and describe that experience for us?
Well, it wasn't a good experience. It's the only bad year I've ever had in my life. I'd been up just like at Boston when I was at Pawtucket. I'd been up for the big league job and came in second. And when Billy Martin got fired in Oakland, I had already turned down 3 or 4 coaching jobs. I never had a desire to coach in the big leagues. As Joe Angelo will tell you, that's because I'm a big egotistical idiot. But that's a God's truth. I always thought that I had been, it sounds phony, but I've been manager of the year in every AAA league there is. I've been minor league manager of the year in Baseball America. I'd accomplished some things. At Pawtucket, believe me, 5 years at Pawtucket can get you ready for any big league job as far as media. I'll never forget when I did go up with Oakland, I was kind of tricked into that. I came in second. It got down to me and Steve Burrs. They'd flown me out twice for interviews. I was managing their AAA club in Tacoma in the Pacific Coast League. And they called me up and they said, we're going to name Burroughs as manager, but we want you to come out and be his coach. I thought they were talking about bench coach. Well, I flew out. We had the press conference in Oakland, and they announced me as a bullpen coach. Well, I've always said a bullpen coach and first base coach, you could train a dog to do. The only thing a first base coach does is make sure as soon as a guy gets a hit, he jumps from his coaching box up and talks to him on the base. He's in the picture now on television. I don't know what the hell he's going to tell him. Yeah, there's nothing to tell unless the only thing you can do is if they're playing behind you, is you can make him aware of a guy coming up on the pitch. There's nothing you can tell. To have to tell a major league player making $4 million a year, don't get picked off is a little ridiculous. For them to have any signs whatsoever, well, then you might as well get rid of the third base coach. That's the guy that gives the signs. And I just thought it was the dumbest job I ever had. You answer a phone. I was never asked. 90% of the kids in Oakland were my guys. I was never asked one thing about them. We had a horrible year. And then when the year was over, Billy Williams and I were rooming together. And when the year was over, on the last day of the season, Billy and I were sitting having breakfast, and I opened a sport page and at the Oakland Hyatt, and I opened the sport page of the Oakland paper, and it said, Steve Burroughs rehired with his entire staff. And I immediately quit breakfast, told Billy I was going to the park, and I went up and told Roy Eisenhart, the president, I said, I'm not coming back. I'm going to go back to Tacoma. It's the dumbest thing I ever did in my life. I've just never, it's amazing, 51 years in the minors, and the 1 year in the big leagues is absolutely a year I never talk about. You asked me, it's the only reason I never discuss it.
Sorry for bringing it up, Ed.
No, I never talk about it. It's the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. Most useless thing, that's for sure. Plus, I was always somebody that, in the community, became known and raised funds for kids and did a lot of charity stuff. Well, when you're a coach, you can't do any of that stuff. It's like you're stepping on a manager, and he was the biggest dead ass I ever met. Didn't want to do anything.
Never exchanged Christmas cards with him after that?
No. He was good to me. He was just the worst manager I ever seen. In my mind.
We're chatting with Ed Nottle here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. After your 5 years managing the Pawtucket Red Sox, was there ever any consideration for you to move up and be with the Boston Red Sox?
Well, that came a couple years previous when they got rid of McNamara, and it was, I was told by Lou Gorman and those guys that it was either me or Joe, and they were waiting to make a decision. And then they called me. Actually, we were in Maine, and Lou called me and said, "Stay there. Send the coaches with the ball club to the park in Maine, and we're going to figure it's either going to be you or Joe." And then he called me back about an hour later, and he said that Mrs. Yawkey wanted wanted Joe Morgan to be the interim manager till the end of the year. And be honest, I thought Mrs. Yogi was dead. I didn't have any idea that she had any vote in anything. But I was always, I'll put it this way, I've always been very quotable. And I've never made it a secret that I wanted to manage in the big leagues. And to be perfectly honest, when I die, my brother and I have a deal. I'm being cremated, and if he has to break into that place, my ashes are going in the dugout. I was born to manage the Boston Red Sox. The fact I didn't is my fault. But oh man, that was unbelievable. You know, we were very lucky with ball players. The 5 years I was at Pawtucket, we sent 45 guys to the big leagues. I always tell them when I see any of them, "You forgot me. What happened? I thought we were all going to be there together." But it's just one of those things. I would say, honestly, I probably shot myself in the foot 90% of the time between singing and I'd never liked a lot of rest. I always put in more time than anybody at the ballpark. I love being at the ballpark, but when I was on my own time, I figured I could do what the hell I wanted to do. And I did. But, you know, I'm 74, never took a drug in my life. I love my cold Coors Lights and never had one until after the game was over, and never been in an argument in a bar. And I love bars. I'd grow up in a bar if I could.
If he was going to have an argument with someone, he was going to be sober and was going to be with an umpire on the baseball diamond, right?
That's about the truth. But also I want to mention one other thing. People talk about bars and this and that. I'm a nobody, and I've raised over $1 million for charities over just by singing songs, and nobody has been more responsible for that than the bars around the country that I've known and bar owners that I've known, and the things they do day in and day out that are good for the community. And I always thought they took a really robbing, just too much. Never enough good said about them. And I love bars. I don't think I could ever be an alcoholic, but I'm a baraholic. I miss when I went through what I went through. I love bars. I love Joe Angelo's bars.
Real quick, because we are running out of time. Years back, there were rumors and reports circulating that there was a movie being produced about your life. What's the status of that? What happened to that? I haven't heard anything about it in years.
Actually, the producer, Julie Campbell, called me yesterday from Texas, and it's been redone. There's been a lot of things redone on it. They've had 3 different scripts on it. Finally, this last time, my big thing was I didn't want any lies. I said, you never have to check. I've given enough material for years. People traveled around with me, and I've given enough material for 8 movies. I said, you don't have to make up things. I didn't want the Hollywood side of it, you know. And I'd read about different things like Billy Martin. I love Billy Martin. And I read about they put these fictitious times we were together. We were together enough with a lot of funny things happening. We didn't need their bullshit. And I really think that, I get bleeped on here. If that's the worst word, whoever's listening, if that's the worst word you ever hear, you're in good shape, buddy. Believe me. Anyway, well, we should. They are going to make the movie.
From movies, from one medium to another,
yeah.
You're often known as Singing Ed Nottle. You've raised money for charities over the year, doing concerts, singing standards, and whatnot. You've released albums. Mike, can we get a little instrumentation for us? Ed?
Instrumentation?
Yes.
Give me instrumentation?
Would you mind giving us some vocal stylings before we say goodbye today?
Well, if you come up on Tuesday night.
Oh, you can't get a preview right now, Ed?
If you come up on Tuesday night, you'll hear me going, fly me to the moon, let me play amongst the stars, let me know what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. That's enough for free.
That's Singing Ed Nottle, former Brockton Rox manager, joining us here on AM 1460, the new WXBR, emceeing 50 years of boxing, a celebration for Roger Pitt Barron Tuesday night at Joe Angelo's Cafe. Hank Tattaglia has more information at 508-667-4438. Joe Angelo has more information at 508-588-8331. Ed, thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Thank you, Peter. Michael, enjoy it. Owners, what a great job you've done putting this place together. Good show, guys.